When I started programming, I was always thinking about the code first. And I've realized that that limits your thinking creatively. I think you really want to think about the product first. You really want to think about the experience. What is it going to do when I walk up to this thing? How does it come alive? How does it respond to my presence? How does it show it is connected to me?
It's like having hundreds or thousands of copies of my own brain doing things I want them to do all of the time.
href equals. When I was younger, I used to play a lot with games. I always thought, like, how did they design this? How did they add these images? You have an idea in your mind, you just go to computer and code it and try it.
Programming, it's kind of like just a different way of art, but like for your mind.
Happiness, right?
I'm always trying to find a new way to entertain myself. Like, I think coding is kind of like an infinitely new way of trying to entertain yourself or make things easier.
Humans get bored, they get distracted. What got me into programming was just all these tedious tasks I had to do in school and at work. In middle school, we got extra credit for writing software on our TI-84 calculators. I would just stuff it filled with all the equations and algorithms, so I didn't have to really do much of the math tests.
When I started working at a temp job doing data entry,
Come on.
I had taught myself programming. I had actually automated the entire job, and I didn't tell anybody.
When you're talking to a computer, you have to be very explicit in what you're doing.
Code is there to tell a computer what to do, and it is there to tell a human what you told the computer to do.
About 90% of our time is actually spent reading code, and only 10% of the time is spent writing code.
Most of the actual problem solving which is understanding the problem. You're not typing on a keyboard until the very end of the very last step where you've actually identified how to solve the problem. The software is a snapshot of the programmer's understanding of the problem. It is very much like building a small brain that's capable of thinking on its own and teaching it how to think and what to do in different situations.
People like to write code a specific way, just like they like to write letters and words a specific way.
It's like you imagine an effect that you want, then you have to kind of take it apart almost mathematically and break it down into the steps. It is very just mentally taxing. I feel like the cognitive load is very high. It's a pretty tough domain to work in.
People are black boxes of confusion.
A lot of the stuff that computers do today are the stuff with no ambiguity. You can tell it to do it 10,000 times and it'll give you the same response 10,000 times. Where you can't do that with a person because they'll make mistakes.
When I look at a computer, it always works exactly the same way because I'm from a place that's so rigorous and consistent and precise. The rest of the world feels very confusing. In programming, there isn't anyone else. There's only you. And if it runs those instructions and doesn't do the thing you wanted it to do, it can only be your fault, which is both terrifying and also really, really liberating.
Making something that, I've never seen before is like you going into uncharted waters.
You can put your ideas into a reality.
The fact that we've come so far since the transistor was invented in the 60s, is remarkable. We've only been going for 70 years. What are we gonna do in another 70 years?
When you can make the computer do whatever you want, it's beautiful, it's artistic, it can be really empowering.
I love programming because it lets me achieve things that I could never achieve on my own. It's like being a wizard in the real world.